on this call. We're glad to have you joining us, and for some of you to bring your children. Amy, I see you have yours with you from the previous call. Mine is just off to the side. Let's see, a slight peek. She'll be so embarrassed. Okay, welcome everybody to Working From Home. I'm Aaron Nelson. I'm the president of the Chamber for Greater Chapel Hill-Carrboro, and I'm guessing you saw my email with some updates about what's going on in our community and an opportunity to have a conversation. Unlike a formal presentation with a slide deck, that's not what we're going to be doing here today, but really we want you all to lay eyes on each other, to be able to share conversation, to ask questions, to get important answers. And we plan on doing this for just an hour. Let me just a little orientation if you are new to the Zoom tool. If you sort of put your mouse into the main screen, it'll open up a sort of down at the bottom some controls. You can mute yourself off to the left. I have all of you muted right now, but I've given you permission to unmute yourself if you want. You also have the ability to stop and start video. So when you stop it and start it, it'll just put your name in the square. There's also, you can click participants. That's a place for you to raise your hand. So as we're talking, sometimes I can see you wave a hand. Sometimes I can't tell. Raise your hand that way. That is a way for you to show that you have a question, and I'll try to call on you. You also can see everybody that is in the conversation and use that chat function. Using the chat function, you can scroll through and have a conversation, a private conversation with someone if you want to ask them a question, or you can ask a question to the group. So you can see that chat running down the side of the screen. That is a place where, as I go along and you have questions that you'd like answers to, several of the chamber staff are on this call. We've got Katie Luvis, I see Rebecca Dickinson, Vanessa Watson, Justin Simmons. They are going to keep up with your questions, and we're going to make sure that we give good answers to you guys, both in real time or follow-up. We're also going to be posting some links over there, so cut and paste liberally out of the chat features. So if I show you, for example, our US Senator has just posted a FAQ on the upcoming stimulus bill, and I will drop that link in there and you guys can grab a hold of it. Now, a caveat. We had a conference call like this earlier this week, and it was hijacked. A few people, some interlopers, got a hold of the web URL because we posted it on the internet, and they joined us secretly, and midway through the conversation, they shared their screen and posted inappropriate photos. And then played some audio for us that we found quite shocking. If you were on that call, it was quite a surprise. Thank you, Vanessa, for helping handle that. We don't expect that to happen this time, but just like if you've ever been to any sort of a conversation, and if someone jumps up and starts misbehaving, we'll just take a moment. We're going to try to resolve that, and then we'll go on. So anyway, I'm glad that you guys are here. I'm really glad that you're here. These are extraordinary times for our community, and the way that we are going to make it through it is together. If you've been on these previous calls, our mantra is about holding on to each other. Those of us with our hands extended, grabbing on to our friends and neighbors, communicating and sharing best practices with other businesses, asking the chamber for what you need. We've talked a lot about a group of ants in a colony, and when a flood happens, they all cling together and they float like a raft. And then when the flood subsides, they are able to return to ground. And so let's hold on to each other. It is going to be very turbulent. We are not near the end. We are not in the middle. We are at the beginning of this crisis, and it's going to have substantial negative impact on our community. And it's really going to test us as humans on how we interact with each other over these next many weeks of shelter at home and kids at home and people in need. And it's going to really test our ability as business people. But let me tell you, you are not alone in this. You've hired, many of you, this Chamber of Commerce or your another local chamber. And we are your support, and we're here for you, and we're going to work as hard as we can to help you all be successful, giving you good information, really trying to help us make it through this. I want to say first, as we get going, we do have a county commissioner with us on the call, Earl McKee, Earl spends his day working for an engineering firm. You can see him, he's got a vest on from the truck. I appreciate that. We also have our sheriff with us, Sheriff Blackwood. We've done an extraordinary job over this period of time. There's many others of you out there, and we're gonna get to some conversation. You don't just need to type your question. In just a minute, we might unmute you and let's have a dialogue with each other. So what I was hoping to do at the beginning here is share what I know. So I'm gonna take 15 minutes or so and give you some real-time updates. Some of the information is 20 minutes old. And we'll share with you what we know. All along the time, again, post your questions and we'll get you answers and we'll talk shortly. Okay, as everybody knows, we are in a state of emergency, a national, state, and local emergency. Our public schools have been ordered closed through May 15th. That is 7 weeks to go. I think my children are counting that at 48 more days. I've never seen them more anxious to go back to school. Some of you are postulating that maybe school doesn't open on May 15th. And for it is not unreasonable for you to plan for that to be the case. A lot of what we're encouraging you to do as business people is to plan, to anticipate this being worse, to anticipate this being longer, and to try to make proper plans for that. Our university is closed to students returning, although there are 1,000 students on campus, either international or don't have a home to return to. But the buildings are closed to faculty and staff. In fact, they changed their one cards and they can't even get into their own buildings. Graduation has been postponed. Many of you all saw that. We will not be having graduation in May on Mother's Day. The governor has ordered many kinds of businesses closed. All restaurants and bars must close their dining rooms. They're doing curbside. All personal care businesses, think of those as businesses where people touch each other. So massage, tattoo parlors, nail salons are all closed. So also our entertainment businesses where large people get together. Those have been ordered closed by the governor. There's a link to that if you want to read it in detail on our website. Long-term care has incredible restrictions. Pay close attention to that. Let me make some announcements about what's happening in the unemployment space. There's lots of questions we're getting from you all about whether you should hold on to your employees, whether you should let your employees go into the unemployment system, hold them somewhere in between. And it's, well, let me just give you the information on what changes have been made. Hopefully that can help you make a choice. There's 5 key changes. 1, unemployment is available immediately, so they don't have to wait. If you terminate someone today, they're eligible for employment the next day, unemployment the next day. Number 2, it will not be charged to your account as an employer if you have, so it doesn't change your unemployment rate with the state. 3, gig workers, sole proprietors, independent contractors are all now eligible for unemployment and they can file. And the biggest change is you do not have to terminate them for them to be eligible for unemployment. A reduction in wages makes somebody eligible for unemployment. So if you had an employee working 40 hours a week and they're now working 10, they're able to file for unemployment to make money from you and to receive benefits through unemployment. Let me see the final. You do not have to be looking for work to get unemployment. So they can leave you, hang tight, and you can pick them back up later. The maximum benefit is $350 a week. That is a very small benefit. It's one of the lowest in the United States. But the federal stimulus package contemplates an addition. So the stimulus package contemplates, I've heard as much as maybe it's a $500 addition into the unemployment benefit that the state will offer. Many things having to do with this stimulus are not known yet. Hang tight. Give us another 3 days and a lot more information will be known. The House will be taking this up today. The President signs over the weekend. But then it is going to take weeks for people to write the regulations, to lend the money that is contemplated in there. And it'll take a little while to figure the rest of this stuff out. So if you're on the cusp of letting somebody go or making this choice, if you wait another 3 days, I think you'll have more information about how that's going to work. Let's talk about loans just for a moment. There's been a lot of conflating of terminology. This is what I mean by that. If someone is talking about their Ford, there's a big difference if they're talking about their Ford Pinto or their Ford Fiesta or their Ford F-150 or their Ford Mustang. So we've been talking about SBA loans as if they're all one thing. So there's a lot of confusion. Let's try when we talk to each other, when you talk to your bank, when you ask questions, let's be specific. So there are SBA disaster loans. Those you might have gotten when we had our water crisis or when we had hurricanes. If you have an SBA disaster loan, all payments on that have now been delayed or postponed to the beginning of next year. If you have or wanting an SBA economic injury loan, those are the ones where it's up to $2 million. It is a 30-year term. The interest rate is 3.75. If you're a for-profit, if you're a nonprofit, it's 2.75. There are no payments for 6 months, and you borrow that money from the federal government. You do not do that one through your bank. That one goes through the feds. It is for the first $25,000, no collateral required. Money after that, they will talk about collateral, but we're told by them that they're very loose on that. If you've filled that out, some of you have completed that, the form has changed. So they took the website offline for 18 hours 2 days ago and reintroduced a different website. So we are checking right now that our instructions that we've been sharing are still relevant, and we're seeking a new set of instructions. But the main complication with this is, one, the system's a little slow. Two, when you file, there's no place for you to ask for the money. There's no place to say how much you want. So the recommendation is in the narrative section is where you say, and I'm requesting money. That money is intended to make up your lost revenue. So if you were making $50,000 a month in revenue, and now you're only doing 10 in revenue, you might say to the feds, hey, can I have $40,000 a month for the next 10 months? So I'm going to borrow $400,000. So that's what you should write in that narrative, explaining what you wish for. There's also been some modifications. If you're asking for less than $500,000, you do not have to, it says that you don't have to put your business tax returns on there. All they want, they don't even ask you for your income and expense. They ask you instead for previous tax returns. And those are probably as old as 17 and 18, right? If you are a brand new startup, it's complicated, right? Do your best with the form, and it should all be about your business. If they're asking you for your own social security number, you've taken a wrong turn somewhere in that form. The folks at the SBTDC can help you with that, Small Business Technology Development Center. Your banker can help you. We're working with SCORE locally that they can help you as well. The one that we're hearing a lot about is these forgivable loans. So it's traveling around the internet that there's going to be forgivable loans. And that's what we are hearing as well. Again, we'll need a few days to know. But it looks like the federal government will lend money to businesses for the purpose of you keeping your employees. So you would take revenue, you would keep your employees employed, and if you kept them employed, the theory is they would then forgive the loan. That sounds magical, right? But hold tight. If you call your bank about that right now, they don't have any information or ability to lend that to you. So my advice is, rather than call your bank right now for information on that, my advice is prepare your documents for requesting something. So begin getting all your information in order, both for the economic injury loan, and that's because you're suffering economic injury, or you project you will, or for any future lending. That'll make your banker's job easier, make your job easier also. We also have, Carrboro has stood up a nearly $500,000 revolving loan fund. It'll be zero interest. The application form is available right now if you're a nonprofit that serves Carrboro, or if you are based in Carrboro, available for businesses, principally to help you keep your employees employed. Now, some of you said, how do I keep my employees employed? I have no work to do. We're closed. Yes, that's odd, but it is designed, both some of this federal and this, is that you might pay your employees though they are not working. That is going to be part of how we keep the economy going. Orange County also has an economic development loan fund for emergencies. You can apply for that as well. That is about, now I'm not remembering exactly, $350,000 available. Golden Leaf has made $14 million available. And an individual, Tom Rayner in Carrboro, has offered his personal money to lend up to $500,000 to small businesses in $10,000 increments. And he's approving those in 24 hours, some collateralized, some not. All of that you can find on the Chamber's COVID-19 page. There's a place where you click and it says, want answers? And it is a live, up-to-date, we update it sometimes hourly in order to keep that information going. Let me say a little bit about some industries that are going on. In our healthcare industry, it is wild right now, very, very busy and preparing for a surge. They project the surge is not coming until late April, early May. We will not see the peak of this until late April or early May, 5 weeks from now. All of the things that you are hearing about shortages are real. They are desperately in seek of masks, sanitizer, equipment, all of those things. And we're seeing some innovation. Scott Maitland at Top of the Hill has turned his distillery into a hand sanitizer manufacturing location and is able to produce hundreds of gallons of that to support folks in our community. If you don't need to go to the hospital, don't. And if you do feel ill, they want you to call in advance. Please do not just show up. Our restaurants, as you can imagine, have been suffering mightily. They have been testing different models and trying to innovate. Some really cool programs like Carrboro United. I encourage you to Google that. An interesting way to support local enterprises. And our hospitality industry is in bad shape with occupancies below 5%. The only upside to that is that our hospital is now beginning to engage with our hospitality about whether we can convert our hotels into housing, either for employees that are critical and need to stay close, or to quarantine individuals, or to create some healthcare services that need to happen. So those conversations are happening. Thinking about that can be kind of scary, but the good news is that people are partnering really well with each other. We had an economist speak to us just 2 days ago, Dr. Mike Walden, making predictions about what he thought was going to happen. And there's a debate about a V and a U. So a V recovery is things go down really bad and then they bounce back really quickly. A U recovery is things go down and they're really bad, and then they're really bad, and they're really bad, and then there's a recovery. His indicators are, it looks more like it should be a V recovery, that once we are less afraid and once we are less contagious, that folks will return to spending money, that it's not like what we saw in the Great Recession. With respect to the recession, the numbers of unemployment are off the charts. In the worst week of the Great Recession, we had 600,000 new claims. That's the worst week. This last week, we had 3 million new claims for unemployment, and a great deal of layoffs are happening here in our community. So we now have a stay-at-home order. Sheriff, I may call on you in a minute by way of heads up. Folks have had some questions about how this will be enforced and what they should expect. So tonight at 5 p.m., we are ordered to stay at home. At 6 p.m., thank you. Tonight at 6 p.m., we are ordered to stay at home. We are not to travel on roadways. We are not to go outside and be active in our community, except for a series of exceptions. So let's talk about that. You are allowed to go get groceries. You are allowed to go to the hospital. You are allowed to travel to care for a person. You're allowed to go to the pharmacy. You're allowed to go to the hardware store. You're allowed to get your car fixed, to get gas. So I sent an email out that has a nice summary. I also want you to click, there's a level of detail. Some of you have been calling to ask questions. Orange County Economic Development got a call that said, can I go outside to paint on my easel? So of course you can, and please don't call the phone number to ask that question. So please tell your friends, they trust you. You are business leaders. They're going to ask you for information. Please ask everybody to read the order before calling to ask. Sometimes we like to use each other as Google. And rather than Googling it by calling the county office, I encourage people to read it. There's a lot of information, and I offered a bit of a summary. And I hope that that will be helpful. Let's talk about business operations. So all businesses are ordered to cease activity, except a long list of exceptions. And that long list of exceptions are what are called essential services. And it's most things except retail. And so one of the big things that happens with this order is that general retail is ordered closed. So a jewelry store, balloons and tunes, for example, Sophia's Boutique, companies like that that are not seen as essential activities must close. And that starts at 6 p.m. tonight. PTA Thrift Shop, for example. I believe that you are included in what is not an essential activity. I'm sorry, Community Works. That said, Orange County did something remarkable, and they did something that very few other counties did, and they allowed retailers a chance at success. And this is how it's written. It says, I'm going to read it very specifically. It says, any business providing non-essential goods and services may continue to operate, provided that they do so via curbside delivery, mail order, virtual or web services only, with no in-store traffic. Had our county commissioners not done that, it would have been illegal for Charles House to go to his own florist shop and make a bouquet and send it to Toledo if somebody had ordered it, right? This allows you to go to your own store and fulfill phone orders, fulfill mail orders, fulfill web orders. You just can't have a customer in your business. It goes on to say a little bit more. If you're in this category, read it. The next one is about minimum basic operations. You may go to your store or your place of business, even if it's judged non-essential, so long as you comply with physical distancing, for the purpose of maintaining the value of your inventory, ensuring the security of your business, processing payroll, or whatever minimum functions are needed to keep your physical space safe, or to facilitate employees working from home. That is a gift. And we worked hard, we lobbied on behalf of the business community in the days that they were writing it, and we're grateful that they included it. All right, here's what's new. We hear that the governor is going to issue his own order. We did hear it was coming today. I now hear it's coming on Monday. The information in that says this. Hold on, let me read it to you exactly. Sheriff, actually, let me unmute you. Folks have had some questions about how will this be enforced? Do they need a hall pass? Do they need something in their car to say it? Y'all, this is your sheriff.
So the first thing I want to do is thank you for inviting me to this Zoom. Secondly, I want to say that one of the first things I heard when I began to get involved in governmental business was the whole of government approach. And I want to tell you why that's so critical. When folks start making rules about what other folks do, when they really have no real world understanding of what those folks do, things go sideways really, really fast. By having stakeholders at the table who are involved in all aspects of this, it really makes for a good end product. And that's why I want to thank the Chamber, one, for being in existence, and two, having such a strong voice in our community to be at that table with a real world understanding of what the florist does, what the sports industry products are doing, what the rental areas are doing. It's been invaluable. So when these orders first were discussed, my BOCC chair, Penny Rich, called me and told me what they were contemplating. And I told her I was dead set against it. And for the record, I am against it today. However, I realize that it has to happen. It's not something any of us want to do. It's what we have to do in order to break the chain of transmission of this horrible virus. When you're dealing with a Nova virus, one that's no one has immunities to, it can be devastating. And just by putting one person in quarantine, you can cut in half the spread within the community that person lives in. That's huge when we start to talk about our hospitals and our medical centers staying online and being able to do what they do and deliver the services to me or to you if we need it. As far as how the sheriff's office and law enforcement reacted to this, I called all the chiefs, and I was selected by the committee that drafted this document to get input from all of them and to sit at the table for the law enforcement community. And I was honored to do that. And Chris Blue, Walter Horton, Dwayne Hampton, myself, the Highway Patrol, David Perry at the university, we all shared our concerns. And we were listened to, just like the business community was listened to by your representatives who were there for you. Although the boilerplate language in this order is a nationally accepted document, the part about our businesses being able to deal with their specific duties, tasks, and inventory is not something that's done nationally. It is very unique, and as Aaron pointed out, it's golden to us. So all that being said, when it came down to what are we going to do with respect to enforcement, our position was from the beginning, we're not going to make arrests, we're not going to write a bunch of tickets, and we're not going to get heavy-handed with our public, because we worked so terribly hard to build trust within our communities, with our law enforcement agencies. And that goes across the board to our business community, to our homeless community, to our Hispanic Latino community. We've worked very hard to build trust, and this is something that can devastate trust. So to that end, we are not going to be heavy-handed. We're not going to be riding around, hunting for people in the community that are standing 3 feet apart and getting out and telling them they need to move 2 or 3 more feet away from one another. I want to say this, before we ever talked about an order, 4 o'clock the afternoon prior, I was at the main intersection and I counted 8 cars. I think our community has overwhelmingly been compliant with an order that wasn't even thought about at that time.
Right.
This is the snowstorm where no snow has fallen. And I'm proud of the way our community has responded, but all of our law enforcement leaders have talked. We're not gonna go out and hunt for people to ticket or to jail or to even criticize. We're just gonna say to our community, you're smart, you know what you need to do. And as Woody used to say, go where you go and do what you do.
Thanks, Sheriff. Sheriff, we appreciate your leadership on that, and that you're going to be a resource for us going forward. While I appreciate that you won't be heavy-handed, I encourage all of us as leaders, both for our employees and the peers that reach out to us as people in the know, is we must encourage people to stay home, though. So some folks have said, well, we only have 10 cases, why are we doing this? If you wait, I saw a physician, he said, if you feel like you are overreacting, you are doing it properly. If it feels like an appropriate reaction, you are too late. We are doing all of this to keep us from going much above 10. And we are not at 10 anymore. We'll be well above 15 and maybe to 20. This is going to continue to grow exponentially, and we're starting already to see some deaths in North Carolina. There's questions that are being asked. Let me hit a few more things, and we're just going to open and have a conversation. And let me apologize. I have a Zoom account with a limit of 100, and there are 100 of you here. A few folks are frustrated on the outside and not able to come in. We'll adjust that in the future. We can handle up to 400 or actually heck 1,000. So we'll open these conversations going forward. Let's talk about the stimulus. And aside, postal workers have reached out to me to remind you all that on occasion, if you would sanitize your mailbox handle, that postal worker has to touch it all the time. All the time. So that was a request that came in from the post office that I thought I'd share with you. Regarding stay at home, I have a thing to share with our real estate community. There's been some question about whether it is legal or not for you to show a house, to have an open house, to do an inspection. In Durham County, they were clear you cannot. In Durham County, you may not show a house and you may not have an open house. 45 minutes ago, I have the official decision from the county on that. Let me read it to you. All right, here's my question. My question said, are real estate agents allowed to visit homes for the purpose of taking photographs, measuring the square footage, and putting them in the MLS? Are professional photographers allowed to visit a home to take pictures for marketing? Are real estate agents allowed to show houses? Are professional private inspectors allowed to inspect them? Are final walkthroughs allowed? And are open houses permitted? This is from the deputy manager. Aaron, we have reviewed your specific questions. All of the activities you list will be allowed under the stay-at-home order, with the exception of open houses. An open house could be held, but no more than 10 people, including the agent, could be in the house at one time, and those people must adhere strictly to the physical distance guidelines. My personal view, I would not have an open house, but that is the formal answer. I will share that with the Association of Realtors, and we will send that also to our real estate members. There is a process for you requesting exemption if you didn't get exemption. Let me now throw in the governor. The governor, I'm told now in an hour and a half, will issue an order that will take effect Monday. Here's what we know about that. Sorry, you're listening to me work my way through my email. Okay, so this is what we are told. It'll be effective Monday, March 31st at 5 p.m. It'll aim at people and social distancing and a stay-at-home order for various exceptions. You do not need an ID to go to work. Business exceptions will be for essential businesses very similar to the CISA businesses that we referenced. Teleworking will be included. Mass gatherings will be limited to 10. There'll be a process to appeal, and the most important, and we'll double check it when it comes, it is not intended to preempt local orders. That's the most important piece. We'll be following along with that. Again, if you see a county commissioner or a town council member from Chapel Hill-Carrboro, Hillsborough, particularly the mayors, give a hug on them. They created a lifeline for our retail. And because they did it first, hopefully it will stay in place. But if you are in other counties, it may not be the case. So a very pro-business move. Sorry, Monday, March 30th, 5 p.m. is what we are thinking. My final thing is about stimulus. Very few people have read it, right? I'll tell you a couple pieces that we know. There is this conversation about loans you don't have to repay. I know that sounds oxymoronic. How do you have a loan you don't have to repay? But it will be about keeping your staff online. Many of you have said, but I already let my staff go. How does that work? We're unsure right now how that works. But I think there will be a system for you to be able to bring people back on. My advice is stay in touch with your employees. On unemployment, we think that they will add to the benefit. There's a downside to this. Depending on how much they add, it may be competitive with what you were paying them. So at $350 a week plus $500, we have to make sure that it's what you'll need to pay them to get them to come back to you. I'm unsure of that right now, but that's a thing that you should put into your math. There'll be cash payments to individuals. I'm sure you guys are reading that like I am. Everybody making under $75,000 a year will get the full payment of $1,200 plus $500 per child. It phases out between 75 and 99,000 a year, and nobody over making more than 99 will get that payment. Double that number if you for married couples. There's been a question about payroll taxes. Many of you have a big tax bill coming in 3 days. According to our State House Representative Myers, Daphne in his office, that her research shows that those aren't due until April 30, at the end of April. It is for the period ending March 31st, but not due till the end of April. The governor can't waive it. It has to be done by the legislature, but they may convene to waive it. So if you've not paid it and want to hold it, waiting to see whether it gets waived or postponed, I might hold on to that for a moment. We hear from you all, there's 3 things you need right now: capital, customers, and good communications. We're working on all of those. If I have a little bit of advice based on what we've learned in the last week and a half, and your chamber staff is working really hard to deliver value to you during these tough times. So here's my advice. Everybody should be calling their landlord and asking about forbearance, forgiveness, extensions, but begin having the conversation. If you're waiting for your landlord to call you and tell you you got 2 months off, it's unlikely to happen, though at the Berkshire they did. Kudos to the people of the Berkshire. They called all the retail tenants and gave them a 2-month holiday. You might ask people to move it to the end. You're not asking to have it forgiven. You might just ask to add a month at the end of your lease, but you don't want to pay in April. Please be communicating with your banks, but please get your information together and be clear on what you want. So if you have an SBA loan existing, ask for a deferment. We're seeing those granted at 120 days or up to 6 months with relatively little hassle. So if you have an existing SBA loan, a 7A SBA loan, please ask that that be pushed off. Many local banks are giving 60 and 90-day extensions or interest only for 6 months. But it's time to have those conversations with your folks. I ask all of you guys to stay healthy. Your businesses are relying on you. Your families are relying on you. And for real, it's the basic stuff. It's about making it outside every once in a while and taking time for yourself and to plan. The last piece I'll say, and I've said it several times, this is not going to be one long funeral where we just slowly say goodbye to each other. We are going to work together to rally from this, and we're going to innovate. We're going to create new ideas and new ways to talk to each other, find ways to communicate and sell products to people at their home. We know someone's going to do a jewelry show in a format like this. We're going to sell products in very different ways. But both while you need to concurrently, Einstein had a quote, and he said, you cannot simultaneously prepare for and prevent war. You cannot simultaneously do those. And what we are going to try to simultaneously do is prepare for the real crisis and plan for reemergence. And so I ask you guys to be thinking about the future as well. With that, that's my briefing. Took a little longer than I wanted to sort of catch you up on where we are. Sheriff, I'm glad that you're here. With respect to these loans, I want to call on Kevin Willis real quick with BB&T. He's now Truist. There's some fraud going on. Some of you already asked me, hey, I see I can apply for this forgivable loan, but there's a $2,500 application fee. No, there is no application fee. Please, if you're getting that, you're on the wrong site. So, Kevin, will you talk to us a little bit about some of the concerns about fraud and what people should be paying attention to?
Thank you very much, Aaron, and I appreciate the time. My name is Kevin Willis. I have 30 years of banking experience. I work with Tim Dalton, and we thought it might be helpful to share for a couple of minutes some of the frauds and scams we're seeing. With everything else going on, the fraudsters and scammers see it as a real field day and a great opportunity. So we just wanted to point out a few of the things that we're seeing out there. As Aaron said, they are already going live. But the main thing is just be very, very aware. Any calls to change any payment instructions, whether you're mailing checks or it's an ACH, any change of that, we ask you to please look up on a known good phone number and just verify and validate those changes. The bad guys will send very, very good looking emails. Sometimes they can even access your Outlook calendars and mimic very much somebody that is a trading partner. So be aware of that. Also, we're seeing a lot of calls or emails, as Aaron pointed out, on debt relief or assistance. Some of these that I've seen are purportedly coming from the U.S. Treasury, asking for personal information or a fee, things like that. It is well too early for any of those communications to be going on. So those are definitely from scammers. You just want to delete those. And also we're seeing an uptick in donations for what I just call generally COVID-19 relief efforts. Sometimes you'll have local restaurants hosting those or larger opportunities. Certainly verify and validate. We certainly want to support legitimate efforts, but we certainly don't want to be putting money into the scammers' pockets. With regards to phishing emails, this is something that you'll want to share with your teammates and anybody else in the community. We're seeing a lot of alerts purportedly coming from the Centers for Disease Control that are actually pushed out to emails. The CDC does not do that if you have not actually signed up on their website. Other things that are floating around are health advice emails about updates. Please click on this link. Those will download malware into your systems. And one that, unfortunately, we're all seeing a lot of workplace policy emails and changes how to do business. They are taking advantage of those as well. A few tips to easily spot some of these phishing emails. They always require urgent action. Generally, they'll have a generic greeting, but sometimes, again, if they have access to information from Facebook, they can personalize those. And if there's anyone requesting any type of personal information, consider that a phishing email and a scam. We're happy to help any way that we can in helping to identify those. Please contact Tim, and I support him in the Chapel Hill market. And good luck to all of you. We very much appreciate that and want to try and support you any way we can.
That was really helpful. The capacity for folks, I'm sure you've seen it in our own office at the chamber. Brian, our CFO, will regularly get emails from Aaron asking him to do things for him, and that they know our relationship with each other. So pay close attention to this. Double check, ask a friend. One of the ways we've created, the chamber has created a thing called Mighty Networks. It's a tool, and Katie or Rebecca, if you post the link, it's a place for you all to all talk to each other, but privately. So you're not talking to each other on Twitter where everybody can see it. It's for the business community. There's special groups, small groups, or large group format. And you ask each other questions. Is this legitimate? Is this what's really going on? As these things come out, reaching out to your banker for these opportunities and communicating, like Lee Kemp, I see Lee there. She is your point of contact at Bank of America for any small business lending, all this SBA stuff. She actually, Lee, if you want to post your email, for example, folks can post their email in the chat group too. You can identify this is me and what I might be able to help you with. But we're trying to find some folks that can really help you guys be successful here locally. I'm posting a few links on the right side. I just gave you the U.S. Senator's FAQ on the CARES Act, the link on unemployment, and how to tell who's eligible and who's not. I saw a question on LLC owners. Generally, if you're the owner of a company, you're not eligible for unemployment. If you W-2 yourself, you might be. But if you're an LLC and sole proprietor, you will be. I know, that may not have made sense. If you own a company and you're the owner, you're generally not eligible. But if you function like an LLC or sole proprietor, or again, like that gig worker, uniquely, we're seeing people file. Realtors also conceivably could file if they've seen loss of income. And then economic injury loans, you're all eligible for. What questions do folks have? Put your hand up. The way to do a hand is to in the manage participants. Either you can wave. Some of you I can see, some I can't. In manage participant, I'm sorry, mine says manage participants. Yours is called participant. You can raise a hand, and I can call on you. Earl McKee, thank you. So Commissioner Earl McKee, I've just unmuted you. If you want to bring welcome, please.
Yes, welcome everyone from the 540 Toll Road Project in Southern Wake County. Working on that. Want to add a little bit of something for the Orange County Emergency Loan Fund. It comprised of two different elements, up to $20,000 in loans and up to $5,000 in grants. The total amount of the fund is $300,000, and the application process, I think there was a link to it just posted on the screen. For everyone who's interested, go and take advantage of that.
Thank you, sir. And I appreciate that you're calling in from work. Our commissioners and our elected officials are part-time folks elected and full-time other working. And thank you for building 540 for us while joining our call. Anybody else have a question? I'm happy to hear what you have or to post it. Or Katie, while folks are contemplating that, have you seen some questions roll along?
Well, the bit, Aaron, about fraud, there was an interesting comment. Someone said they've been receiving almost daily faux messages from you.
Yeah, that's Jackson, I think, in our office, who says he gets regular ones from.
Oh, geez.
Pay close attention, y'all.
That happened once a day.
And Jackson is also showing off that you can change the background if you get bored. If you are wishing to do a little more fun in these Zoom calls, you've got some good choices out there where you can make it a little more interesting for people to spend time with you. What other questions do folks have?
Aaron.
Yep. Sheriff?
Yes, I've got to run. You're welcome to give my phone number out to anybody that has a question. You know, I'll answer a phone call at midnight or a text, but I do have to run.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, Sheriff. And he means it. You call him on his cell phone or text him, and he does reply.
Hey, Aaron, Connolly
Yes.
Walker had a question about the real estate directions. She wanted to know if that was solely for Orange County or
Yes.
statewide.
It's solely for Orange County. I mean, that interpretation is only for Orange County. In Durham, their order is very clear. You may not show, I believe their order is very clear. It says you may not have an open house and you may not show a house. No, that's not what it says. It says you may not have an open house and you may do real estate only to like complete the legal requirements of the activity. So that is our county manager's determination of that.
There were also several questions about unemployment in general, particularly if people maybe were recently hired and now that's being postponed. They're wondering if they're eligible or if their status is as an LLC. So if you could just say a bit more about that.
Yeah, unemployment is not about how long you've worked at your current employer. It's about how long you've worked, specifically your last 2 quarters. So if you worked someplace else for 2 quarters and today is day 2 at your new employer and you get let go, your unemployment will be based on what you earned in the previous 2 quarters. Even if that ends up being like 7 different employers, it is about what you earned there. And because there's no charging to anybody's accounts, there'll be less anxiety about who's paying for your unemployment. What other questions? I want to make sure folks are clear on the stay at home. Yeah, David. Hold on, David. Let me undo you. Y'all, this is David. He owns Sunrise Biscuit Kitchen.
Thanks, Aaron, for all the information and the updates. On the unemployment, the second part of that was the sole proprietors and the LLCs.
Yes.
Most sole proprietors and LLCs don't receive a paycheck. I know that some may have employees, but are they still eligible for the unemployment?
Yeah, let me pull up. I'm going to share with you. Let me check my skills. All right. So there is a website. It's the COVID-19 State of North Carolina Department of Commerce. And there's one here. Are independent contractors eligible? So as an independent contractor, sometimes that person is an LLC or a sole proprietor, right?
Sure.
Independent contractors and self-employed workers are typically not covered. In order to be eligible, they must have held a job considered covered employment. That's the worst answer I've seen. In
Absolutely.
all previous descriptions in the governor's order says that those people are eligible for unemployment. And the feds are going to make them eligible also.
It's going to be
So,
difficult.
Forgive me, that's terrible.
Yeah.
That's terrible. Let me pull up a governor's order that clearly says so. All right, what other questions do folks have?
Aaron, Jasmine had her hand up, and then Cynthia had a clarification question about non-essential business operations. She was wondering if she's got employees living in Durham, would they be allowed to travel to a business in Orange County, I guess, for work?
This is a fascinating question. So yes, they can. It is an interesting legal question about whether these orders apply to activity within a county or activity for county residents. But we do know that people travel back and forth. My guess is, yeah, the listing of what is essential enterprises is nearly the same. And so what you're allowed to travel for in both is essentially the same. The only weirdo part, right, would be the retail allowances in Orange that aren't allowed in Durham. And the sheriff just said he's not pulling you over. So now many of folks have asked, can they have a hall pass? Can there be a way to give their employees comfort, particularly employees who are concerned about interaction with police, that will give them, they don't have to explain themselves, they will simply show a piece of paper that says I work for an exempt organization and I am permitted to travel. At this point, we don't think, well, the police have said you don't need a hall pass. If you as a company want to make a hall pass, we've thought about, should we make hall passes? But that I don't think you need them. But if you have an employee who is anxious to travel because they are uncertain whether they'd get stopped, they can explain themselves, or that they are limited English proficient and they don't want to explain themselves. And it says, I work for an enterprise that is exempt from this order. If you wish to give that to them and that gave them peace of mind, I think that's a reasonable thing to do. I see Earl's got his hand up. Who else? I saw one other person. Earl, did you want to?
Jasmine had her hand up.
Oh, Jasmine. Can you unmute yourself, Jasmine? Or do I need to do that for you? I think I've given you that.
I got it.
Okay, great. What's your question?
So we have a question coming in quite regularly about childcare facilities and the wording on that. The wording seems to state that it is only for essential workers. And so I have a lot of families asking, are they still able to send their children to daycare if they are not an essential worker?
So I believe yes, and here's why. The restriction is on the child care place, not on the person dropping the kid off.
Okay.
And it says that a child care facility may remain open if they're providing services to those people. And if I was kinder care, I bet there's somebody whose kid is there who
Right.
is a cop or a firefighter, or works at the hospital, or drives to a grocery store, or any number. So I'm going to guess that pretty much childcare is okay.
Okay.
If they are worried about taking their child to childcare, I think that that's a permitted activity.
Okay. And then do you know if Orange County has stated what the ratios are? Like Wake County has very clear limits on what the ratio is. It is not in the Orange County order that I saw.
In terms of child to
adult ratio and how the class, like Wake County is very specific on, you must stay in this classroom, you cannot go to another classroom, the adult has to stick with that child.
Yeah, that I don't know. So I agree with you. It's not in the Orange County order. We are submitting some questions for clarification. We can submit that one. The Child Care Services Association is based in Chapel Hill. They're
Right.
members of the chamber. Maybe they could, we'll engage them to talk to folks about that. All right, here are the unemployment insurance changes. All right, I don't want to do live reading in front of you all, but my understanding is the order of the governor did allow that gig worker space to participate, and I just am not able to find that at the moment. Sorry, guys. Someone else had a cut? Earl, go ahead.
Yes, just real briefly, a real world situation for this particular project. We've got people working on this project that range all the way from the mountains to the coast, and each one of the contractors have issued either cards or letters for their employees to carry in the truck just in case. So you might want to keep that in mind. I don't think that the sheriff has been explicit. I think some of the other county sheriffs have been quite clear, but just in case thing. The second point,
Yep.
like the sheriff, if anyone has questions, they can feel free to call or email me. I would not guarantee I'll have the answer off the top of my head, but I'm pretty much guarantee I'll know who to put you in touch with. So feel free to give me a call or email on any questions you've got. Thank you.
Perfect. Earl, that's a Commissioner McKee, we appreciate that. It's a good reminder to everybody. Do not suffer alone. If you don't know, then ask. Ask a friend, ask it in these groups. Please join one of the chambers, sort of those networks. Email it to us. Vicki, you had your hand up? Did I see? Let me go back. There's a bunch of you here. Yeah, Vicky has the conveyor belt sushi downtown.
Hey, Aaron. Yeah, we appreciate all that you're doing for us. This is, really crazy times. My question was the SBA disaster loan that I sent off took like 3 days to get it through. So you're saying that's no good anymore?
No, that's fine. I'm saying that anybody applying, yes, please, yes, you're fine. I'm saying if
That
you've
took
not
3
yet,
days to get that through.
no, I know you worked really hard. If you had not yet done it, you're going to find a new interface.
Okay.
So someone told us they were halfway through, the site went down, the site came back up. It was very different.
The second question that Earl was saying about the grant in Orange County, I kind of missed that information. I'm sorry.
Sure. I'll tell you about that. And we can drop the link or you can Google it.
Okay.
Orange County's, there's a revolving loan fund that'll do 0 interest loans up to $20,000. They also have a grant fund. They've spent probably half the grants. They will recharge that again in July, we hope. Grants are up to $5,000.
Okay.
It feels like free money. It's not. You paid for it in your taxes.
Right. Before we go as well, could I get Sheriff Blackwood's number from you?
Yeah, right. I know.
And Earl's too. Thank you.
Thank you. You can put the sheriff's number. Katie, go ahead.
Aaron, I've got 2 incoming for you. One is with some of the public goods that are considered non-essential, but could very much be in need for people in crisis situations, like at the Compass Center or at the IFC. Do you have any advice for our retailers that might be able to offer some really critical provisions to people in need over the next several weeks if they're willing to do this in a clean way?
Is there an example? Like, give me, what's an example? Like you have blankets?
Yeah, maybe like Community Works would have some stuff that could help people. Maybe they're fleeing a domestic violence situation and need to set up a new home. And how do we make sure that they're going to be able, if the Community Works or a group like that, a thrift shop would be willing to do that safely?
So nonprofits are given, social service organizations are given broad flexibility here. So if you're a social service organization, you should feel comfortable going to your store and helping bring that product somewhere else. Grocery stores are given great flexibility. So if they've got food they want to give to table, no problem. If you were, I don't know, a jeweler and you wanted to donate diamonds to a local activity, I think the provisions that allow you to go to your own business, to check on your inventory, would allow you to participate just fine.
There's that exception rule too, right? You can apply for an exception.
The exception is for you to apply really for the entirety of your enterprise. So Signs Now is a printing company and an engraver. In Mecklenburg, the Signs Now applied saying, I am making signs for hospitals and other things, and I'm in the supply chain, may I be exempted? And they were granted that. In our community, I would tell Signs Now, if he's on, to just proceed. I think that they're going to be very flexible with us. And if you're in the supply chain, it says you're welcome to. But again, if you don't think you're allowed to operate and you want to be allowed to operate, there's a process for petitioning for that. Brian, you had Brian Simpson's here. You are the chief counsel and ops manager for Berkshire Hathaway. Did you get your answer there? Hold on, the muting.
Questions about some of those activities. So I greatly appreciate your assistance and the county's assistance on getting some clarification there. Thank you.
How about that? That was super clear. Yes, you may. It
yes.
said.
No ambiguity. I appreciate it.
We'll cut and paste that and send it broadly. Yes, Katie.
I'm seeing another question in the comment box from Rhonda. She'd like to know the status of UNC hospitals and specifically how they're doing on supplies, if there's any needs like for masks or gowns.
Yes. I sent you an email.
They have needs for masks and gowns. Hold on, let me mute everybody real quick. They tell me their needs are substantial. There is a website now. They have a system for receiving donations. They've stood that up. I could see if I could locate it. Is there another member of the chamber staff who may have access to it? But there's now a system that if you find 10,000 masks in your basement, we are asking you to drive them to them and to make that donation. If you are a tattoo artist and you can no longer tattoo, and you've got a good set of gloves and a good set of masks, they need those things. The supplies are super low, really hard to find, particularly in the sanitizing space. And they are looking in every hen house and dog house and outhouse trying to find those things. So they're in great need. The biggest challenge I think our healthcare system is going to have right now isn't an influx of patients with COVID-19. At the moment, it's clearing the existing people out of the hospital to make room for the surge. So if you were hospitalized at the moment and generally would go to a skilled nursing center next, the skilled nursing center does not want you. They are afraid you'd contaminate their existing patients. How do we get people out of the hospital into some convalescent care, opening the opportunity for us to meet the needs of inbound? But the inbound are on their way, y'all. The inbound are on their way. The surge, they believe, is really coming. So we want you to stay at home as much as possible. What other questions do folks have? Randy, thank you for posting that link. I'm going to scan through. So we said an hour, and it's an hour, but my next meeting isn't until 3:30, I don't think, and I'm happy to hang out and continue this conversation. If someone just wants to unmute themselves and ask a question, we don't have to be as formal as calling on each other. Nobody hijacked us and nobody shared dirty pictures on the thing, so we're fine. So we feel more comfortable. Yeah, go ahead, Randy.
I'm wondering that you and the chamber staff have been so amazing in holding these conference calls. I'm wondering if there's a way that just routinely a weekly check-in can be set up so that we keep our finger on the pulse of how things are progressing.
That's good feedback. We've debated whether to just hold office hours, that this channel is open and that we on a regular, maybe more often than weekly, we open this channel. We have verticals that meet. So like all the Blue Hill district businesses meet like this. If you're not in that, please ask to be included. The Carrboro businesses had a meeting like this. The restaurants have had now 2 meetings like this. Our people who serve our seniors have had a meeting. We've done one with finance and real estate, insurance. Tell us what you need, but if there's a vertical that you are in and you'd find value, we're happy to host a real estate one if you want.
Well, the reason I mention this is, and the reason I'm on today to be connected with this larger community is that the cross-pollination helps to understand a greater network of engagement. So, for example, when you and Katie were talking about community works and being able to find out, if some of the things that community works provide could be used elsewhere. These are the kinds of things that folks might forget about that might find their own place in a different kind of commerce as we move forward.
I agree. So we think that we're going to have a big meeting this way, next week. The all call. When we did our all call, all business meeting last Friday, 400 of you showed up. So we're going to do an all call probably next week to talk about the stimulus package once we know what's in it. But if every Friday from whatever to whatever, we're sitting here, it's open. I also think it's important we see each other, right? We physically see each other and see some other smiling faces or some other sad faces. For those of you who are out there hiding your faces, we would love for you to turn your cameras on and give us a wave. But yeah, that's a great idea. Let me run through some questions. Greg Gerdeau just posted how to give to the hospital. Barbara, thank you. There's a link. So we're going to leave this open for a little while. I encourage you to look over at that chat and cut and paste some of what you need. We've recorded this call and probably cut the end of this off. Let me share a resource. So the Chamber's page, COVID-19, stay-at-home order. We would love if you would fill out this survey. Almost 100 of you have. It tells us what you're needing, how it's impacting you, what do you need, and then we ask for some candid feedback. How's the Chamber doing and meeting your needs? There's 5 things to do. Anyway, instruction on SBA loans. Hopefully those are still accurate. This one here called Answers. This Google Doc, we was last updated at 2:30 today, and it's just a running list. There's a set of directory over to the side that you can click, and we're going to be dropping a lot of what happened in this call in here, but it's hopefully a one-stop shop for you. To all of you Chamber members out there, we so appreciate you. It is your membership that funds this work. You paid for this, you hired us, and your investment in our organization enables us to hire these talented staff people to do this kind of work to support you. We want you to have high expectations of us during this crisis, to let us know what you need. Let's stay in good communication with each other, but we're grateful for your investment. We know that this is tough financial times, so I'll just be candid about that. And we appreciate those of you who are members and choose to invest and help underwrite this work. In this economy, those of you out there that do business, I encourage you, we sometimes forget to ask for the business. As you are engaging with your peers and your friends or online, ask people for the business. Ask them to purchase your product. Ask them to let you help them do a financial plan. Ask them to let you help do their SBA loan. Ask them if you can be their CPA. On 9/12 and 9/13, right, the days right after 9/11, we knew that we needed to invest more, not less, that we needed to do more connectivity with each other, not less. So let's stay in touch like that. Any